Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students, I am your new teacher. My name is Dr. Aftab Ahmed, Professor of Physiology. I am from Multan. I retired from National Medical College Multan as Professor and Head of the Department, and I worked there for 35 years. And Alhamdulillah, my students over the span of last 35 years, they have been up to 16,000 students have become doctors. And it is quite, this KIMS is quite prestigious medical college, and I was interviewed for this, and I came to teach you the subject of physiology. And inshallah, there will be proper introduction and coordination, but due to Corona, Corona has taught us much of the things, how to teach the student online, and how to, there are many positive and negative aspects regarding Corona, and this is quite new lecturing system online. And then we will be, as far as I have been told that the subject of adrenal cortex is being taught to you, therefore we will be switching on to this topic. And as far as the subject is concerned, you know that nature has given you 2 kidneys, and over the upper pole of each kidney there is triangular structure which is called suprarenal gland on each upper pole of each kidney. And this triangular structure, and histologically it is of 3 types, that is GFR. As you know from the renal knowledge of the renal physiology, that GFR, glomerular filtration rate, but it's just for your sake of your knowledge, zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticulans. And they are being in systematic manner, they are releasing the hormone hydrocortisone, this aldosterone, and androgens. These are the big. Today we will be discussing the glucocorticoids. As far as the secretion is concerned, glucocorticoids, they are released from zona glomerulosa of the histological structure of the suprarenal gland, and it has been seen that they are the steroidal hormones. And you know that the steroidal hormones, they are those which have CPP nucleus. CPP nucleus, that is 27 carbon compound, and that has 3 benzene rings and 1 other ring, and 27 carbon compound. This is called cyclopentano per hydroferranthrene ring system. And the structure, the nucleus, any of the steroidal hormone which has this nucleus is called steroidal hormone. And the mechanism of action of the steroidal hormone you might be knowing better from the subject of endocrine in the first lecture, that their receptors, they are not present over the cell membrane or in the cytosol. Their receptors, they are present over the nuclear membrane or inside the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, their receptors are present, and they get entry into directly, these steroidal hormones get entry directly into the nuclear membrane or inside the nucleus, and in this way they form a combination, and they form transcription of genes in the form of messenger RNA, and then they come in the cytosol, and the translation of genes take place in the cytosol. So in this way, this steroidal hormone, they are synthesized, and it has been seen that from the adrenal cortex, which weighs only 4 gram structure, and this 97% of hydrocortisone, they are released from this, and you know that this is emergency hormone, and this is essential for the existence of the body, human body, for well-being of the human body. If due to some reason this is removed, my dear students, if you want to know the significance of any organ or any structure inside the human body, you should remove it. This is the one way of testing or highlighting the significance of any structure. If you remove this, then it has been seen, then this is called adrenal lactimized animal, in which the adrenal cortex has been removed, and we see that the animal or the human being cannot cope or compete with any stress which he is facing every day, and the existence of the individual or man or human being becomes doubtful. Therefore, this is called emergency hormone. It is in the form of stress, in the form of any structure, any infection. This is released, and this helps us in maintaining our helps our body to meet the needs of various stress mechanisms of life. So, as far as the secretion is concerned, the main type which is released is 97% cortisol is released from the adrenal cortex, and this 95%, the other types which are released from the hydrocortisone, they are corticosterone, cortisone, methylprednisolone, dexamethasone, and other types. They are released from the adrenal cortex, but it has been estimated that 97% of hydrocortisone is in the form of cortisol. And this cortisol, which is being released from the adrenal cortex, is the stress hormone, and we will be studying in detail later on how they act on various parts of the body, and each and every target out of the 100 trillion cells of the human body, each and every cell of the human body is the target organ for this hydrocortisone. And as far as this is released, this more than 95% of this hormone from adrenal cortex is poured into the circulation and bound to 97. More than 95% is bound to the cortisol binding albumin of the body, and that in this form it is transported from that adrenal cortex into the circulation, and in this way it is transported from the adrenal cortex into the circulation into the various parts of the body for translation and transcription of genes. And in this way, this helps us to cope up with the emergency situation, stress or infection. As I told you already, that if this hormone or this adrenal cortex is removed from the animal or the human body, then the animal or human is unable to cope up the infection, and his or her life is threatened. So it is essential. This is the hormone which is called life-saving hormone. Life-saving. Life-saving hormone, and in this way, this cortisol is very essential for the proper well-being of the human being. So, as far as the mechanism of action of the cortisol is concerned, we see that this cortisol receptors are present over the nuclear membrane or in the nucleus, and in this way messenger RNA is formed, and that causes transcription of genes and translation of the genes is done in the cytosol. As a result of that, this is coming from the cytosol into the circulation, and as far as its actions are concerned, the hydrocortisone is very important hormone, and its actions of the hydrocortisone, they are on our each and every metabolism of the body, especially on carbohydrate metabolism, protein metabolism, fat metabolism, mineral metabolism, and other metabolism. And as we know that if there is an animal is facing stress or emergency situation, then our ANS, autonomic nervous system, feeds that to cope up the situation, to fight or flight the situation. If a person or any human being is facing emergency situation, our autonomic nervous system feels that either to fight the situation. So suppose you are facing some wild animal or snake or some other dangerous animal in front of you, then you want to try or you want to fly. So this is the autonomic nervous system which feeds you that either to fight or fly. So this is our cortisol which helps us, and once you are facing your enemy, then you might have experienced that you might have gone this much of the force and vigor and strength you have in fighting with your enemy. This is your ANS and hydrocortisone, that is from the adrenal cortex. This glucocorticoids are released from the adrenal medulla. This epinephrine and norepinephrine, old name of them is adrenaline and noradrenaline, they are released, and they are collectively called as catecholamines. Epinephrine and norepinephrine, they are collectively called catecholamines, and they are released in abundance to cope up the emergency situation. So in this way, we see that as far as their actions on carbohydrate metabolism is concerned, this is the hormone which acts on carbohydrate metabolism and promotes gluconeogenesis. You might be knowing the meaning of gluconeogenesis. It is the mechanism by which the glucose, more and more glucose is being formed from non-carbohydrate source. More and more gluconeogenesis, as far as the actions of this cortisol is concerned over the carbohydrate metabolism, it promotes gluconeogenesis, that is formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate source. So in this way it elevates. Normally the glucose level in the healthy person is 70 to 110 milligram per deciliter of blood, but as far as the actions of this cortisol is concerned, this is called hyperglycemia. hyperglycemia. Action of glucose, action causes, and in this way it elevates blood sugar level, and it promotes the TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle, and acts on the liver enzymes, promotes the liver enzymes to enhance gluconeogenesis. Ultimately, as a result of that, this hyperglycemia is achieved, and in this way, this also promotes the enzymes which are necessary for production of more and more glucose on the liver and on the other cells of the body, and as a result of that, their sugar level is elevated. And in the same way, it acts on the protein metabolism. So in this way, they increase, they metabolize these amino acids and force them to be catabolized into the, they are catabolized, and in this way they break down of the amino acids from the muscle proteins, also from the cellular level, and increase the level of the amino acids and proteins into the cells, into the circulation, and thereby converting them in further causing gluconeogenesis, elevating the sugar level. In this way, the muscles proteins, they are break down, more and more muscle proteins are broken down, and the condition is called rhabdomyolysis. Muscle proteins, they are degraded, catabolism occurs, and they enter into the acetyl-CoA TCA cycle, and ultimately they are elevating the glucose level in the blood, thus raising the glucose level. So the proteins, they are broken down. As far as the free fatty acids they are concerned, the actions of the cortisol, they cause more and more synthesis of act on the intestinal mucosa to pick up more and more free fatty acids from the diet and from the various parts of the body, and in this way they increase your cholesterol level, increase the free fatty acid level, FFA level in the blood, in circulation, and as a result of that, the free fatty acid level and the cholesterol, that is increased. And then they deposit these free fatty acid level on other side of the body, and in this way, over the trunk, over the central abdomen, in the hump, and also in the buttocks, this drainage free fatty acids, they are deposited there. As a result of that, we see that free fatty acids are deposited, and they ultimately lead to obesity. So in this way, these act on intestinal mucosa to absorb more and more minerals from the intestinal mucosa. As a result of that, this cortisol is again, but it is the main emergency hormone, which is ultimately energizing your body cells to cope up with the emergency situation, so that you should compete the infections, you should be able to face the emergency or stress situation, and as far as other actions of this hydrocortisone is concerned, this is the hormone which has the important anti-inflammatory activity. My dear students, you know that inflammation is a clinical condition in which which stands on 5 pillars. That is, increase in local temperature, number 2, increase in edema or increase in the size of local tissues, number 3, increase in capillary filtration, and number 5, increase in local temperature. And 5th is defunctioning, transient loss of function. They are the 5 pillars on which the inflammatory process stands. तो 5 किस्म की अलामात होती हैं फ्रॉम हेड टू टो किसी भी बॉडी आर्गन के इन्वॉल्व होने में, तो उनमें इंक्रीज लोकल टेम्परेचर बढ़ जाता है और उसकी साइज ऑफ द टिश्यूज लोकल एडिमा हो जाता है और सेलुलैरिटी बढ़ जाती है और उसमें फ्लूइड एब्जॉर्प्शन सिक्रीशन वो भी बढ़ जाती है और ट्रांजिएंट लॉस ऑफ फंक्शन वो भी स्टार्ट हो जाता है। तो जो हाइड्रोकोर्टिसोन है, दिस इज द बेस्ट हार्मोन विच is anti-inflammatory in action, and this how this acts and produces anti-inflammatory effect in the body, that is, it stabilizes the lysosomal membranes. Number 1, it stabilizes the lysosomal membranes, and number 2, it stabilizes the mast cells, which are very essential in mediating the inflammatory process. And once this degradation of the lysosomal membrane does not take place, the process of inflammation does not start. So this is one of the hormones of the human body, steroid in nature, which is essential in stabilizing the lysosomal membranes, and it does not break this lysosomal membrane. As a result of that, your arachidonic acid, bradykinins, interleukins, they are not released. As a result of that, we see that an inflammatory process does not start. Secondly, it stabilizes the mast cells, which releases the chemical mediator, that is mast cell stabilizing. This is serotonin and other arachidonic acid and bradykinins, interleukins. They are released, and in this way they mediate the inflammatory process. Once their membrane is stabilized, the gates are closed, and then this happens that we see that the inflammatory process does not start once the chemical mediators are not released. So this cortisol is very important anti-inflammatory hormone which has important properties. Furthermore, we see that as far as the other effects of cortisol on the human body is concerned, this is the best hormone which prevents the fever to take place, that is antipyretic action. Antipyretic action of the cortisol, that fever does not develop. And as far as the fever is transient, thermoregulatory circulatory failure. So this has, after stabilizing the lysosomal membrane and the mast cell stabilizing, this is not released and anti-pyretic effect of cortisol is achieved. And furthermore, it has been seen that it causes more and more lipolysis, lipid production and lipid storage in various parts of the body. That's why it causes obesity, central obesity from the trunk, abdomen, anterior abdominal wall and buttocks. So it causes central obesity in the form of this hormone, production of this hormone, and it has antipyretic effect. And furthermore, last but not the least important function of the cortisol is that it is the hormone which is important anti-allergic. Anti-allergic action of the cortisol. Very important function of the cortisol, that it is anti-allergic. That is, whenever you take anything, the pollen allergy or dust allergy, rice allergy or food, edible food items you are taking and you get allergy. And this is the hormone which helps, which is liberated in tremendous amount in the circulation to counteract the effect of allergens. Allergens, that is pollens, dust, rice. Some people have rice allergy, some people have milk allergy, and some people have pulses allergy. So this is the hormone which normally helps to meet up with allergic situation and counteract the effects of allergy. So in this way, it is very essential hormone which helps us in counteracting and mediating the stress mechanisms of human body. And I summarize my first lecture that this is the emergency hormone which is released in various emergency situations in the body. Suppose you are facing some enemy, wild animal, or any stress or infection. That is also a form of stress. And this is the hormone which helps you in combating the threats of life. And it has been seen that if adrenalectomy is done in the animal for experimental purpose in order to highlight the significance of cortisol, adrenalectomy is done, we see that the animal does not have the capability for combating the infections, and his or her life is threatened. So its action is that it causes gluconeogenesis and elevates blood sugar level by acting TCA cycle and other causing gluconeogenesis, that is formation of glucose from the non-carbohydrate source. That is from amino acids to from fats, the sugar level is elevated. And in this way, this energizes the cells to form, cope up with the emergency situation of our body. And furthermore, there are 10 various types of these cortisol, but 97% is cortisol. Hydrocortisone, methylprednisolone, dexamethasone, corticosterone, cortisone, but they are usually they make 3% of the total level, but mainly is your cortisol, hydrocortisone, which acts on various cells of the body and causes gluconeogenesis, pick up more glucose from the intestinal mucosa, elevating blood sugar level, and also has anti-insulin effect. Anti-insulin effect that is achieved, and as a result of that, we see that the receptors they antagonize the effect of insulin. As a result of that, the insulin become insensitive, glucose, and the glucose is not entering into the cell, thereby elevating the glucose level in the circulation, thereby causing hyperglycemia. If we make the graph of this, we'll see that normally if the graph is taken like this, and by all the effect of more and more cortisol is increasing, their effect is increasing with time and level of cortisol. In this way, they elevate, causing gluconeogenesis, elevate glucose level, and thereby causing obesity, increase the level of the free amino acids, elevating cholesterol level. At the same time, they have the anti-inflammatory effect, causing by stabilizing the lysosomal membranes, stabilizing the mast cells, and in this way, this inflammatory process is not triggered. As a result of that, we see that this all is not happening, and the anti-inflammatory effect is achieved. Lastly, there is antipyretic effect of this. The people give as an antipyretic effect of the cortisol in the form of dexamethasone clinically, and we see that the fever does not develop as the anti-inflammatory effect of the cortisol is achieved. So in this way, this acts at various levels on all the metabolic activities of our body. As a result of that, it elevates the glucose level, and in this way, we see that once the glucose level is achieved, that energizes each and every cell of the body, and in this way, we see that this effect is achieved. As far as the control of this cortisol is concerned, again very important clinically, that it is minutely controlled by the hypothalamus of the body. That is, this is hypothalamus of brain. This is your anterior pituitary gland, and this is the suprarenal gland. So in this way, this hypothalamus will control sending the signals to anterior pituitary gland to release more ACTH and to act on adrenal cortex to produce more and more cortisol. And in this way, as a result of that, cortisol level in the blood is increased. And then these signals, they go back. This is positive feedback mechanism, and this is negative feedback mechanism. Once the maximum concentration has been achieved in the blood, so the negative feedback mechanism will feed back the anterior pituitary gland and also not to release more insulin, cortisol. So in this way, we see that another hormone which is called inhibin, that is also released, and that ultimately feedback to hypothalamus not to release more and more cortisol in the blood. In this way, we see that this is from this hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis. This is called hypothalamo pituitary adrenal axis. This is being controlled by negative feedback mechanism. This is this limb is showing the positive signal from hypothalamus, ADH, ACTH, acting on anterior pituitary gland, releasing ACTH to release more and more cortisol, hydrocortisol in the blood. This is positive limb, and this is once the concentration is achieved to the maximum level, then the negative signals in the form of negative feedback mechanism go to the anterior pituitary not to release ACTH more, and also inhibit another negative hormone, inhibiting or discouraging the secretion of hydrocortisol in the blood that uprises your hypothalamus not to release more and more cortisol in the blood. In this way, this is prevented, and in this way, this is closely controlled in the body. And another interesting thing is that once this adrenal diabetes you are familiar, my dear students, you are familiar with diabetes mellitus, one of the most important. Every fourth person in this our setup is suffering from diabetes mellitus, and this is pancreatic classical diabetes, type 1 and type 2 pancreatic diabetes, in which the beta cell mass is decreased and they are not releasing more and more insulin. As a result of that, the person suffers from hyperglycemia, and the person becomes diabetic, and there is classical picture is appearing in the form of polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia. There is more quantity of urine being passed, more he is taking, and more he is obese, and more he is taking and the things, and as a result of that, the person becomes diabetic. If the beta cell mass is less under the age of 40, under the age of 40 years, this is called type 1 diabetes mellitus, and if it is manifested after the age of 40, this is called type 2. After the more than 40 years, type 2 diabetes mellitus. This, of course, this is classical diabetes, pancreatic diabetes. And as far as we are discussing the chapter on cortisol, actions of the cortisol, as I told you already, it causes hyperglycemia. Thereby it is increasing your glucose level. And once the glucose level is increased, ultimately it also simultaneously making the insulin receptors present on the cell membrane ineffective, insensitive to insulin. As a result of that, the glucose molecule face difficulty or cannot enter into the cytosol. As a result of that, there is in the circulation there is hyperglycemia, and the person suffers from adrenal diabetes. Adrenal diabetes, not pancreatic diabetes. Pancreatic diabetes is classical one. It is called, if it is after the abnormality of the adrenal cortex, this is called adrenal diabetes. If, just like in acromegaly, this is classical diabetes. And third, this is 1, this is 2, and the other third type of diabetes is called pituitary diabetes. pituitary, if the more and more growth hormones they are released as a result of the pituitary tumor, that is craniopharyngioma, pituitary tumor, more and more pituitary hormone is released. As a result of that, the